Alright, in this clip we want to talk about a new definition in C# coding which called array. Imagine, let's make a C# code here. I call it part 2. Okay, and let's go to the Visual Studio. Okay, imagine we want to have several variables, several integer variables, which they are exactly the same, but with the same kind, but with different values. For example, I want to say integer x1 equal 1 and say something like this: x2 equal 2, x3 equal 3, x4 equal 4. Okay, we can define a different method for these kinds of variables. Look at this, they are all of them the same: integer, 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 and the name of them can be the same: x1, x2, x3, x4, but the values are different. So we will define something like this: integer, with this way we can define, and x parameters, something like this. Okay, and now we will say it is equal 1, 2, 3, 4. With this method, we can define different variables with the same name. Let's save. Look at this. If I add this script to this main camera, let me remove this guy and part 2 to this one. Okay, we'll have in the inspector x1, x2, x3, x4, but here we will have something like this: element 0, element 1, element 2, and element 3. Okay, remember, these numbers are important, because if we want to access to these parameters, to these values, we need to know which element we want to access it. For example, if I want to do something like let me do something void start here. Okay, and now if I want to change these parameters here: x1 equal 2, x2 equal 5, x3 equal, I don't know, 7, and x4 equals 9. Okay, this is one method. But here, imagine if we, and it is easy whenever we have just 4 parameters, 4 variables. If we have 100 variables, what we gonna do? In changing all of them one by one? No, we will use 4 for this. We will say, I will explain what is the 4 in the future, but I just want to show you what is the use case of array. Okay, we will say x parameter dot length, for example, and here something like equal 1 plus, I don't know, I. This I grows up every time. And now look at the difference. If it is gonna be, for example, 215 items, if it's gonna be something like this, leave it here. Okay, and come back, and let's make to, for example, 215. Look at this. This duplicate 215 times here. It is 214 because we already have element 0. And now look at this. It replaced the numbers automatically with just 3 lines. But if I wanted to change 215 numbers, first I had to define 215 variables here, and after that in this function 215 times I had to repeat this code. For example, I don't know, 2 plus 2, 3, 5 plus 3, 7 plus 3, something like this, but here we can do it very easily with using array. Okay, sometimes we can change them in runtime, sometimes we don't need to change them in runtime, just use them in runtime. For example, excuse me, for example, here we already have these parameters. Okay, now we have this 215 times, and for example element 109, it can be 1 2 3 4. Okay, at this part, instead of this guy, I make a comment to be able to keep it and don't process it. I'm going to say print here number 109 is plus something like this. But here I want to have access to element 109 to read this number. Okay, so I will say here x parameters 109. That's it. Let's come back to the Unity. Apply the scene. Ta-da! We have this guy. We have parameter 109 is equal 1 2 3 4. It's here 1 2 3 4. Instead of integer, we can define, for example, let's remove all of this. We can define a public game object, scene objects. Imagine in our code the order is disabling some objects in the scene. These kinds of objects and the amount of these objects can be dynamic. For example, whenever I'm writing this code, I don't know how many objects I will have in the scene. 20, 25, 5, or 169. I don't know how many objects I will have in this parameter. But what matters is, I say, guys, please hide all of the objects I will define in the future. Okay, so I will say for scene object dot length, all of the scene objects dot selective false. Just disable them, all of them, every objects we will have in this array. Let's come back to the Unity, and for example, let's add a cube here. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Okay, we have a lot of objects here. I don't need to write cube 1, cube 2, cube 3, just having this array here. And in this part, in the scene object, I can lock this main camera in the inspector. After that, select cube until cube 23. As you can see, the inspector still shows the main camera parameter. It is because of lock. Okay, and now drag and drop this list of objects to this array. Look at this. Now I've added all of them automatically. No need to drag and drop one by one to this part. After you finish this part, you just let them go. You know, unlock the inspector of the main camera. And now, if I play the scene, you will see all of them are disabled very easily. That's it. This is the easy use case for array in C# coding. Okay, let's go to the next step.